Wonderful people, how is it going? David, it's a pleasure to see you.
As is you.
As always. Mm-hmm. We just recorded another amazing podcast, but with a slight twist as a result of some stupidity, I'm going to go as far to say, from me. We recorded this podcast actually a little while ago. However, in the process of trying to update my computer so I could actually make it a usable piece of kit, I deleted all the audio from the podcast last time, except for the introduction. It hurt me to my core, my soul. It took me, and I actually legitimately mean this, it actually took me like weeks to get over. I couldn't believe it.
Took you to some dark places.
It took me to some dark places.
Yeah.
Only because it was completely my fault. But
it was legitimately an accident, mistake. It's not something you ordinarily do.
Thanks, man.
But it was a blow. It was a gut punch.
It was a real gut punch. However, we have rectified that. We've recorded again, and I would argue that it's even better.
Yeah,
it's even better. I think we've got better cameras going. I think the topics that we covered were even sort of just hit that extra bit of spot. Mm-hmm. But just to be aware, you're going to see us like this in the intro. You're going to see us looking a little bit different, and then you're going to see us jump back to sort of similar to what we look like. So we just want to let you know, and also we love you. The more time we can speak to you and see you, the better.
Absolutely. I mean, if you want, we could just sit here and stare at the camera for hours. Really get into the souls of the people at home.
Nah. Let's start the
episode. Hello, and welcome back to Expressions of Happiness.
Happiness!
The podcast that seeks to unearth humanity's oldest and most latent potential and answer the most important question.
What's that, man?
What does it mean to be happy?
What does it mean to be happy?
It's an elusive question, and
it's being in the room with you.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
Well,
you're welcome, man.
We're back again. Series 7,
episode 9. We've been doing this for so long now.
Yeah, we just did back-to-back episodes over the course of 2 days, and we're now at Series 7, episode 9.
Could you imagine?
Just an onslaught.
Our brains would be swollen with knowledge.
Yeah.
But based off what I went through today,
Yeah. Wow. We really went through the thick of.
We did
some information.
We did. But my name is Will Brockerbank, and this right here is my main man, David Hart. Expressions of Happiness is a bit of a passion project for both of us, and I don't know. I think today sort of really it just brought home that point further. We've recorded one before this where it's us two, and it was great fun, such great fun. Mm-hmm. And then it's also just so amazing to then have guests come in and be a part of that as well.
Yeah.
Before we introduce our guest of today, let's find out about some good news, buddy.
Let's find out about some good news. And the good news is actually in relation to what we are going to be speaking about with our guest. So it's not an individual, it's not an organization, but it's an organism. And it's the humble mushroom. Okay. So I wanted to really speak about something called microremediation. So the mushroom is really, really good decomposer. Okay.
Right.
So, and they're finding that, mushrooms is the mycelial networks underneath the ground are vital to soil health and entropy and overall decomposition. And they're also finding now that mushrooms have far more potential for decomposition than we could ever have imagined. So I was
not sure I could have imagined it in the first place.
Well,
so you're really knocking my socks off here.
Yeah, I'm about to knock more off as well.
More socks. Man, that's why I work. That's why I double up for moments like this.
I always triple layer those socks
because you don't know who's going to knock them off, baby.
Well, I'm glad because are you ready?
I was born ready.
Right. So, they are good at remediating polluted water. So they've actually used it in removing E. coli from the Chicago River. They can filter farm water runoff. They've also found mushrooms that can actually absorb and soak up petroleum waste.
What?
In Chernobyl, the eponymous site, and they've found mushrooms that can actually absorb the radiation from the area and convert it into energy.
What kind of mushroom is that?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to try and butcher the name here. It's some sort of long...
No, I'd give it a go.
Oh, God. Okay, hang on, let me find it. God.
He's panicking.
Oh, no, it begins with a P.
It
It looks like it's got some silent words in there as well.
It's definitely got some silent words in there.
I actually can't find it.
Oh, right. Sure. It's actually... No, you see, if there was a camera on your screen right now, it'd be written in big, bold letters across the whole screen. You just don't want to do it. No, it's fine. I won't hold you to it. But it's some convoluted, difficult name.
Some convoluted, difficult name. But also they're finding that oyster mushrooms are able to degrade single-use plastics, shopping bags, basically materials that were otherwise deemed and seem, undecompostable. They're finding that there's a whole plethora of mushrooms out there that can effectively remove the waste from our planet and convert it back into meaningful nutrition for the soil.
Well, that's a good find.
So it's a good find, and it's a good
link.
Good link.
Good link.
Good find, good link. Also a good news story for the overall impact and health of our planet. How'd you like that?
I'd like that. Man, that's an amazing piece of news. Certainly something that I was not aware of. So basically, long live the mushroom.
Long live the mushroom.
Yeah. Were they what in The Last of Us? What was it that infected them?
Oh, that was...
They looked mushroomy.
Yes, that was mycorrhizal fungi.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've got a fifth. So it could be...
No, cordyceps. Sorry, it's cordyceps mushroom.
It was.
Which actually you can use as a supplement for your own health. But the
thing
cordyceps...
that was in The Last of Us.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
It actually...
mutated people into monstrous...
Yeah, well, that's how I'm viewing it. I think that's a healthier version of,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping...
That's a way of living, you think? That's where we need to get to.
Yeah.
We're all interconnected through a fungus.
Yeah, some demonic...
And we will willingly murder people for just the pleasure.
No, actually...
they don't do it for the pleasure. It was
What's the overall survival of the mushroom species, of which I am a strong believer.
Right.
Yeah.
So you actually were an advocate for that film.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm trying to get myself infected, but it is varying results.
Yeah. Just bathing in mushrooms.
Yep. I bathe in mushrooms. I rub mushroom ointment on my body.
Right.
Routinely, morning, night.
This specific strand of mushroom as well.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
I just cover it with any opportunity to eat mushrooms, drink mushrooms,
or
bathe in
lather your body in it until you glisten in the sun.
Yeah.
You'll take it.
I'll take it.
Oh, that's good for you, man.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to have their shtick.
So that's
that's
you,
thing.
and that's me,
Mushroom Man.
So,
but that's very, very cool though. Especially very fitting around the topic of sustainability. We should probably start talking about what this episode is all about, right?
Absolutely.
Our sort of goal is to incorporate a number of different visitors or guests to come and talk about a topic which sits as one of the pillars of happiness, and explore that topic in a little bit more detail and talk about some amazing things that they are doing in that space. And today we really did get an absolute treat. We're fortunate this person was our friend prior to this, but the journey that they've gone on in more recent times is something really inspiring, and I think that anybody would see the value in what he's doing. So And apologies, I'm going to have to read this off the phone to make sure I get this right. But our guest is Mr. Rowen Halstead. Now, he is a chef, a Michelin-trained chef, and he started learning the ropes at the age of 16 at a place called The Pantry in Newmarket, before then going on to study for a year at Westminster Kingsway College in London, which is known as one of the oldest and most prestigious culinary schools in the whole country. Naturally, that ended up leading to him having some doors open to him, particularly in London. But London was never going to be a permanent place for him, so spent the next few years working in a few different locations. So one was Chiltern Firehouse, which I hear is a bit of a hotspot for celebrities like you and I. Yeah, really, A-listers.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't heard of that one, actually.
No.
We'll go there. We'll go there sometime.
No, we'll go there without a booking, and we'll get in straight away. And then he also got his first taste of a Michelin Star restaurant. I'm going to say it's Debousse. Is what I'm going to go with, but I could have butchered that. Apologies if I have. Then his next step on what can only be an impressive start to his career was then moving to a 2 Michelin Star restaurant known as Midsummer House, which is in the wonderful place of Cambridge. We should again go and visit there and really spread our wings. And there was no hiding the fact that he loved working in this space. He learned loads of different things, pushed himself beyond what he thought was capable of in his own right. But the consistent sort of 80-hour working weeks and just endless pressure to produce the absolute excellence of certain things with maybe disregard of a few other things, he decided that actually it was time to take his skills abroad and enjoy some time sort of cooking in other countries. And first of all, he was in Switzerland. Then I believe he went to to a Caribbean island. It's a tiny Dutch Caribbean island,
Curacao.
Yeah, and I mean I can't lie, I'm pretty jealous of that one because that was happening when it was lockdown for us, and he was out on this beautiful beach working at this restaurant, living his best life. But all good things must come to an end, which then brought him back to the UK, where he spent spent some time at a mixture of a few restaurants, but the one that he sort of ended up at in the end was Retreat East in Stowmarket. And the particular bit of interest I have of that is that this is where he started to really focus in on sustainable food, or working sustainably and having zero waste menus. So he really started exploring, and it started to get really, really interesting. But common theme: finances. Not amazing for restaurants. A lot of issues that can come with that. So after sort of having to go back and forth with a few of these issues, he decided to leave the kitchen in that sense, and was a little bit lost at first, but then started to really look into the topic of sort of continuing his work at the previous restaurant of sustainable food and zero waste cooking. And since then has gone on to produce a number of amazing workshops, supper clubs, is doing loads of talks and coming on podcasts like this, really to sort of create a seismic shift, or be a voice that is part of the seismic shift required to make the food industry more sustainable, and also to help common people like not you and I, because we're obviously A-list celebrities, but reduce the amount of food waste that they're producing at home and preserve a few more of their things. What a guest. Oh man, Rowen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. It's good to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, never a burden. It's always great to see your beautiful face.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you added that it's not a burden. That's
I don't know, maybe it could have been a burden. It's a burden to look at Dave.
No, that's unfair on Dave, isn't
I've got no mirrors in my house.
No. That's fair. That's
None.
Fair.
No. It's too much of a burden.
Wake up in the morning, go to the bar. God.
No, their word mirror has been crackable.
Yeah, exactly.
It's now a danger hazard. There's too much broken glass all over the
You
place.
don't want to see the sorry state of his housemates. They're all just withered away with being
cut
around
up
him.
bloody feet.
Oh dear. Well, straight off the bat, we're on an absolute tangent. But no, welcome to Expressions of Happiness. This is a podcast where we get to explore what, Dave?
Oh God, what do we get to explore? So many things. So many things.
Well, no, it's an age-old question.
It's an age-old question. Humanity's oldest and most pressing question. What does it mean to be happy?
Oh, it really, really is a pleasure to be here with you both. This podcast is something we've been looking forward to for ages. It's we're fortunate that we've got you as a wonderful friend, but it's just so amazing to see the growth that you've gone through in terms of your career space and what you're trying to do and accomplish. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to talk about what you have to offer to the world, which I can guarantee the wonderful people at home is a lot. But I think I would be amiss if I didn't start by highlighting, we've done a little introduction to you prior to this podcast. We had very, very large concerns that your head would increase to a size that we would have to complete some risk assessments that neither of us
Can't wait to hear this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Maybe just be playing it over and over and over
Yeah,
again.
that's it. Buckle up, buddy. It's
Just
it's a
on
doozy.
repeat.
It's a
On
doozy.
repeat.
Yeah, and there's already too many big heads in this room.
Yeah.
You know,
Bulging. Is it Megamind? Is that the person I'm thinking of?
mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
Megamind?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Bulging brains bouncing around the room.
But these cameras are actually really far away, just so we can can get us in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10 to 20 meters away in order just to fit us in the frame.
At least, yeah. I mean, it's a good thing you have such a massive house.
Yeah. It just goes for miles. This place.
I mean, there's a tennis court in the middle.
And a swimming pool.
Yeah.
So we did a lovely introduction to you. So we want to just dive straight into it. And I think the best place to start is to really actually find out a little bit about your career history. You are obviously a chef, and you have been for a number of years now, from as long as I can remember. What actually inspired you to go into the world of cooking and being a chef?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question I get asked all the time, and I actually don't really know the answer. You're not unique.
What
an original question that was. Oh, yeah. Sorry,
right.
I've never been asked that before.
Sorry. For the people at home, all right. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that I've wanted to do my whole entire life. It's not, a lot of the journey that I've gone on isn't really the stereotypical chef journey. A lot of chefs, they kind of drop out of school at maybe 16. They find themselves as maybe a pot wash in a kitchen, and they just work up from there. And they just thrive in the environment, and they just learn while there, and that becomes their life. They get so absorbed into it. But I have loved cooking for as long as I can remember. I remember, like, on Sunday nights, flicking through Mary Berry cookbook and trying to find a recipe that we had the ingredients to cook. And I'm talking like when I was 12 years old, of just trying to find something that I can cook that night, because I just wanted to cook. It's my outlet. It's my creative outlet, is cooking. And my parents knew about me, and I think they quite strongly wanted me to just keep it as a hobby.
Why was that?
I think they just knew what the industry is like. It's hard. You work a lot, and especially back then, that was 15, 18 years ago. And it was a different time in the industry, definitely. You had like the Gordon Ramsay era, where it was screaming, it was shouting in the kitchen. And I don't think they wanted that for me, which is fair enough. I didn't really want that for me, but I was just so passionate about it, and I just really wanted to do it. So, stayed in school, did my A-levels, and then went off to London and studied at Westminster Kingsway in London, which is an amazing culinary school. And that just kind of opened the doors to the world of cooking in London, which was absolutely incredible.
I mean, we sort of went through the catalogue of places that you've been, both in this country and in others. You've obviously had the privilege, but also the skill to be able to take your skills pretty much around the world. You've been to so many different places, and that it oozes the fact that you are clearly passionate about this field, and despite having maybe the guidance or words from your parents saying maybe keep it as a hobby, you were able to see straight past that and actually look at the bigger picture and the joy that it brought in your life. So with that, and the fact that you've worked in, you know, some of the top restaurants in the country, and also working at some more local ones, did you find that in order to really embrace that world to its full or to its entirety, that you were actually having to make an active decision to put blinders on, to focus in on the food, to see past maybe the messier side of the industry?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And I think people don't stick around in the industry if they're not passionate about it. You know, as I said, it is hardcore sometimes. And if you just focus on the bad parts of it, you will leave the industry almost instantly. So you have to be passionate about it. And yeah, I think I probably did put up blinders and just be like tunnel visioned on what I wanted to do. I've definitely been in some kitchens where, you know, some horrible stuff's happening over there and you're like, head down, let's just focus on this right now. And that's kind of the attitude I've been with a lot of the restaurants I've been in. Just like, keep your head down, stay out of trouble, and just crack on with the job that you're here to do. I don't really there for drama.
Sorry, go on.
I was just to kind of follow this thread. What was your overarching ambition or goal with all of this? Was there ever a kind of a summit insight where you thought, I want to reach this position?
Oh, absolutely. I wanted to be, when I was younger, I wanted to be the best of the best. I wanted 3 Michelin stars. I wanted everything. And then I worked at a number of Michelin star restaurants. I worked at a 2-star, and I think I just came to the harsh reality of this just takes over your life. You know, Hannah, my wife, she was just like, you can't carry on like this. Like if you have nothing else going on in your life and you're just focusing on that job, fine. Absorb yourself into it. Let it carry you away, and you can do some incredible things. You can be the best of the best. But if you want that balance in your life, if you want to, you know, see friends, you know, have just a bit of a social life and a bit of a balance, it's so difficult at that level to do.
Is that something that also is maintained almost all the way through your career? Is that for, obviously there's people that will go on to maybe have a bit more of a celebrity status or hold certain things where there's a bit more flexibility, but in the spaces that you were working, maybe those that were a little bit older than yourself, were they still sort of going through that exact same motion?
I think so. I think it's a common thread in the whole of the industry. You know, there's always that difficult thing of having that balance. You know, we work ridiculously long hours. So I don't know, I kind of just took a step back from it. And I think that is the primary reason why I am kind of where I am now, is because I've been through it. I've come out the other side, and I think there's better places to be than trying to strive for the best. I admire anyone who's doing it. I really do. These people who are getting their 3 Michelin stars and the best restaurant in the world, incredible. But I think I just want more of a life. I want to experience life a bit more than just in a kitchen all the time.
How dare you? How dare you?
I know. It's selfish of me.
Out of just sheer macabre curiosity, what was your longest week? What was the most amount of hours you put in?
Oh, we were doing... so there was some weeks that I would do 6-day weeks. And we'd have one slightly shorter day. So it'd be, the shorter day would be like 8 a.m. till maybe 5 in the afternoon. So a normal person's day. Mm-hmm. And then the other 5 days were about 8 a.m. to like midnight. So however many hours that adds up to, I can't do the maths. Enough. Yeah. 85 plus hours. Yeah.
For 5 of the days, that's your hours, and then maybe one normal day's worth.
And then obviously your day off is just, you're knocked out. That's it.
So in a sense that there wasn't a sort of particular inflection point. There wasn't a straw that broke your back.
No, because when you're in it, you're just in it, and you're like, this is the world. You're completely surrounded by, and everyone else is doing exactly the same thing. But it's until you take that step out of it, and that's where, you know, my wife kind of stepped in and was just like, you have to, like, you can't keep doing this because you're gonna just wreck yourself. Like driving home at night at like nearly 1 a.m. and just being so incredibly tired that you're almost falling asleep at the wheel. It's just like, you can't carry on doing that. So that's why I really admire people who, you know, keep doing it day in, day out, because it is tough.
I think that's the fascinating thing about the existence of almost so many different people, where when you're in it, there is the blinders. You are like, this is the way of life. This is what day to day is for me.
Yeah.
And then you have those conversations with other people. Some of them share that similar structure, but maybe just in a different field. But others then have that extra little bit of flexibility. And I think that is something inwardly that I found with myself as well, just in relation to teaching, is that I couldn't see anything else. And then the pandemic happened, and it was the first time that forced stop happened. Yeah. And then, you've almost taken off these sunglasses.
100%.
You're like, oh my God, there is another way for me to go about this world.
Well, I think that's kind of, in a weird way, why the pandemic, I mean, this is going to come across really bad, but was a good thing, because so many people...
It works both ways.
Yeah. So many people got that chance to take that step back and kind of just have a look at how their life is going and have a chance to reflect on it. And maybe discover that they actually have a passion for something that they just haven't had the time to explore before.
I'm in complete agreement. I mean, look at what's behind you, I suppose.
Exactly.
Focusing specifically on the different restaurants that you worked in, obviously being the Michelin Star restaurants to some of the more local ones, but maybe we're doing something creative. What would you say were some of the key differences in your working patterns, or just maybe the experiences that you had in the difference between Michelin Star versus, more of a local restaurant?
Well, the hours, definitely. But
yeah.
The difference, I mean, we'll come back to it, but definitely the food waste. Link that in.
Oh, yeah.
Link that in. But
that's a plug and a half.
But no, there's such a difference in morale. I always feel like the teamwork is so different at each level you're at. When you're at the top, there is so much of a dog-eat-dog environment in the kitchen. Everyone wants to get to the top. But when you work at sort of a more local level, I think there's just such more of a team. Everyone works together. I mean, it's usually a smaller kitchen. When you go to the Michelin Star kitchens, you've got usually quite a big team. I've worked some in London there were about 40 chefs on the rota.
Wow.
So
40 chefs?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe like 16, 20 on at a time, but over the whole kitchen, there was about 40 of us. And you're trying to get to the top. You're trying to out-cook everyone. And yeah, it gets a bit nasty sometimes. It does get nasty. But when you work at the lower kitchens, I don't know, just there's a really nice, friendly environment connected to it.
Just sense of connection for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Kinship, camaraderie, and less of the kind of vying for competition.
Yeah.
And individualized, focused.
And it comes down to the pressure. I understand that, when you're at a 2 Michelin star level, the amount of pressure that's applied to that accolade is insane. If you do anything wrong, if one person messes up in the kitchen, that's it. You could lose that star and your whole reputation could be ruined. And it could be your little commie down the line. So everyone's just constantly on top of what is happening. Whereas, if you don't have a star, you don't really have that. Obviously, you still get critics and people coming in, and the customers they'll always matter. But it's slightly more relaxed. The pressure's off a little bit. And yeah, it's just it's more relaxing. It's so much nicer.
So you're working in these Michelin Star restaurants, focused on reaching the top, realized that your life was too imbalanced and that you needed to take a step back. So when you entered these kind of more local, smaller restaurants, so you say where there's more camaraderie, more kinship, what was it there that was missing or was lacking? Or was there something that wasn't missing? I mean,
I don't think there was anything lacking so much. They were great restaurants. I mean, after I left my last Michelin restaurant, I went and did private work for a while. I was fortunate enough to go to Switzerland, and I worked in a private chalet for a while. So I worked for myself. And then after that, I essentially ran a restaurant. So I was cooking my own food, which was something I hadn't done before. And that was really interesting to kind of develop my own style in cooking, and just find my feet in what I want to do. And this was 2019, 2020. And it all came crumbling down, obviously, because COVID hit and the restaurant had to close. But yeah, I'm kind of striving to get to that point again. But I've come so far since then in learning the style of food that I want to cook, the sort of restaurant I want to run. And that's where the whole sustainable zero waste thing comes into it, because I now want to run a restaurant. I want to own a restaurant that follows that ethos. And there's very few restaurants out there that actually do that. And I can't understand why.
Well, this is where the real meaty stuff comes in. You know, the pleasure of being able to read and beyond anything, actually see the things that you are now exploring and learning. And what I always find to be the most powerful thing beyond just an idea is actually making it happen. You know, you've had this idea and it started off with things that you've done on TikTok, which I really want to discuss in a second. But beyond that, you've then also gone out and started running classes and things like that. You know, for me, that's a real standout about someone that's passionate and has a vision for something that can really have a positive change on just society in general. But let's start with where you almost began to actualize this vision, which is obviously beyond the kitchen of all the places that you've been and the restaurant that you were last in, where it was a little bit more focused in on that sustainability. But you brought in the TikTok of, is it Waste Not Rowen? Am I right in saying?
Yeah, Waste Not Rowen, yeah.
And my word, are there some jarring facts that you share with that? But with this being deep rooted also in optimism, what is some of the most jarring facts? Maybe, you know, one of the ones that maybe you shared on your TikTok that really is something that is poignant and everybody really needs to understand. But also, what is something that shared a little bit of optimism in your own mind? Because I'm sure when you read into this topic, it can be a bit of a rabbit hole.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, it is a very vast and sometimes quite depressing a little rabbit hole you can definitely fall down. I mean, I think the most shocking thing is just the standout fact that we waste 40% of all food. I think that's just absolutely ridiculous. That I think it's 1.8 billion tons of food is wasted every single year.
My God.
9.53 million in the UK alone, which is enough to fill the Royal Albert Hall 190 times. So
it's just almost unfathomable.
Exactly. Just to try and visualize the amount of food waste that we produce is just insane. But looking at the more optimistic side of things is that there's so many people already out there trying to combat this. This is, you know, I'm not reinventing the wheel by going out there and talking about this as much as I'd like to think I am. There are people already doing it. And it's a slow burner. Don't get me wrong. I've read a book that was written in 2009 that we're basically in exactly the same ship as we were then. So yeah, it's
often the same with so many important topics.
Yeah.
You go back and read the research, and it's been said time and time again. But it does take people like yourself to bring that back to the forefront and have those really important conversations.
You just need more people talking about it. And I think now we have things like TikTok and Instagram. We have social media where people are connected far more than they were back in 2009. What do we have? Facebook, I think, back then.
Bebo.
Add me on MSN.
Yeah,
MSN.
exactly. We had it all. God, we were flying high back
we
then,
were,
weren't we?
we were actually.
Yeah.
I missed the nudge. I miss being able
humble,
to absolutely,
simple nudge.
Yeah, just the humble nudge.
It's a little nudge. Hey, do you know about food waste?
Could you? Oh my word! You'd be taking over the world if you had that feature.
Oh.
Easy.
Oh boy!
Yeah, all you had to do was write a book and get on the telly somehow, and yeah. So things have changed. And I think we're now in a strong position where we can really make a difference with how we approach it and how we talk about it. And yeah, there are plenty of people out there talking about it. So that's the optimism you can take away from it.
Now, I appreciate the optimistic glow of that last sentence. We need it, and that's ultimately where we're aiming for. That's what we need to be doing.
But as
you say, you need to be able to address the current problem at hand.
Oh, absolutely.
And when I was doing research for this particular episode, I wanted to kind of get a bigger sense of the scale of our total waste, not just with food, but within all facets of our life. So I've got some pretty shocking, jarring statistics here, just to share with you both and to everyone at home so they can get a sense of what's going on. So
I'm ready.
Strap in.
So I think this is annually. We waste 300,000 tons of clothing, 24 kilos of e-waste. We spend 1.2 billion pounds on bottled water and 4.15 billion in excess unused energy. And an astonishing 4 billion is wasted in unused gym memberships, which, of course, me and Will actually make up a good.
We pay people off.
We
take it. We'll take it.
We equalise the deficit.
Nice. That statistic is mainly you two.
Yeah. That is absolutely insane.
I mean, I want to actually just jump back into that bottled water one because I read that it requires, I think it's like 3 times the amount of water to produce a bottle of water that's in the bottle of water. How insane is that statistic? We're basically wasting water to make water.
That makes me angry.
Yeah. Stop buying bottled water.
It
comes
confused.
from a tap.
But as you said as well, you know, the annual food waste as well is 9.52 million tons, which is just shocking, really. And there was a data collected from Greenpeace UK. They did a survey called the Big Plastic Count, and it was the UK's largest household plastic waste survey. And it found that nearly 2 billion pieces of plastic packaging are thrown away weekly. Just 12% being recycled, and a staggering 83% of plastic recorded was from food and drink packaging waste. The most common items being fruit and vegetables.
Yep.
So,
which is also just so sickening, isn't it?
It's disgusting.
They do not need to be wrapped in plastic. No. It really comes down to that sense of accountability always, that there is very large corporations trying to basically push out as much produce as possible.
Yeah.
And I mean, even I was actually looking even in the fridge earlier on at just some of the blueberries, because I must admit I was at Sainsbury's when I bought them. I think they were from Peru, right? So I mean, realistically, that's always going to get packaged up. But as with so much of our produce, or certainly in the context of maybe some of the supermarkets, it gets shipped in, build up the plastic packaging, and then even, you know, from locally, it's still in that plastic packaging.
Yeah.
When there is so many better alternatives, as you will be able to.
I mean,
really highlight.
just go to your local farmers market. That's the answer. Or, I mean, I was just talking to someone the other day about there's so many veg box schemes now. They're cropping up.
Odd box.
Odd box. Riverford. Wonky Veg Box is a great one because that utilises all the rejected fruit and veg from supermarkets. 2/5 of all fruit and veg is rejected by supermarkets because of cosmetic standards on them, which is an insane amount of fruit and vegetables. So they take them and they'll ship them to you. So essentially the same qualities you get at a supermarket.
Just looks a little bit different.
Yeah, it's just not the apple's not quite the right red.
So how do what I'd be interested to know is clearly the scale of this problem is monumental, and can feel really daunting at first. I imagine when you're working in restaurants, there was a big part of you that was recognizing a lot of the food waste that was going on. In your own way, how did you begin your journey? How did you begin sort of thinking about food waste and being able to tackle it in your own kind of personal?
So, I mean, the first step was kind of just noticing how unsustainable the restaurant industry is. I think the latest figure that I saw was 1 in 15 restaurants will close in the next year, which is a huge number of restaurants. And it's because they're so unsustainable. And majority of that comes down to the money side of things. So I just wanted to take a step back and kind of look at the bigger picture of it all. And as soon as I kind of started to look into it, there's a restaurant in London called Silo. And it's a fantastic restaurant. It's East London, just outside of the Olympic Park. And it's an entirely zero waste restaurant. The first in the UK. It started in Brighton and then they moved it to London. And they have a fantastic book that is kind of where everything sparked for me for being, this is possible. This is something that can happen. And he addressed a lot of issues about top Michelin restaurants, talking about how they work almost robotically. They're not chefs. They're just working to just the same standard all the time, and you just lose that passion for what you're doing. And they spoke a lot in the book about obviously utilizing your food waste. And they not only zero waste in terms of food waste, they're also zero waste in terms of all packaging, all products. So they go out to their local suppliers, they talk to them, and they say, I don't want you to package up my veg. I want you to just put it in a box, give it to us, and then we give you that box back. Same with milk. We want it in a big metal vat like they used to. Give it to us, we'll empty it, you can have it back. Even things like their wine bottles. They'll grind their wine bottles down into a powder and then turn that into crockery and cutlery for the restaurant. That's the extent that they've gone to.
Wow.
And that just blew my mind of like, okay, talking about the optimism in this, to me, I was just like, okay, this is something interesting. This is something amazing that can happen. And that really sparked a part of me in cooking that I haven't felt in a very long time. I've been doing this for over 12 years and I kind of started to feel that decline in my passion. And then I saw them doing that and I was like, oh, hold on. That's new. I want to get behind this and I want to, start something new here in East Anglia that really gets people talking about reducing food waste, because this is the way forward. And in my head, I'm just like, we can make a entirely zero waste restaurant that's entirely sustainable. And it's not that difficult to do. We just need people to accept it, which is the difficult thing.
I imagine that is probably the hardest part of the journey.
Yeah.
And I think that also, if you make the parallels back to the sense of convenience and the sort of the taking over of supermarkets versus sort of the local producers, or like Hillary's down the road for us, is that you are trained into these, you'd probably go as far to say like micro standards in terms of the food that you're receiving, or the way in which you receive that product in terms of how it's like wrapped and things like that. Yeah. And you almost then lose sight of what is actually something that's worthwhile committing to, or even just, how do I put this? I feel like for myself, I've fallen into the trap of convenience, and you expect a certain standard from something. And I consider myself to have at least an awareness of what's going on. And there's a retraining that needs to happen.
Oh, yeah.
To fully get people to, for example, accept.
You haven't fallen into a trap. We're just now programmed into that. Like 100, 200 years ago, we were so much more connected to our food system. We would be growing crops, taking those crops, having livestock on your land, and then all that food would come to you, and you would literally suck all that food dry. You'd be gnawing at bones to get as much food off as possible, and then using the bones to cook more food. But now we're in an over-industrialized era where everything is just there at the click of our fingers. And it is convenience, as you said. Like, we can go to a supermarket and it is there day in, day out, all year round, and we don't need to worry about it.
I also think about when it comes to convenience and then standards, it's also the use by dates and the sell by dates that come with that. Would you be able to sort of explain to me a little bit more about almost the ludicrousy of how this exists?
Well, I mean, I've been talking to a couple of people about this recently, and I have to be quite careful about what I say, but use by dates are... Let me just put it this way. So Wrapped organisation, who's a huge food waste organisation, have calculated that if we removed unnecessary food labels, so things like there's no legal requirement to label fresh fruit and veg and baked goods with use by dates. It's not a legal requirement, but yet they still do it. If we removed those labels, we could avoid 60,000 tonnes of food waste a year, which is more food waste than Suffolk produces. Which is an insane statistic. And we're now in this world where we will look at a packet of tomatoes that went out of date yesterday, even though they look perfectly, all of our senses towards food are gone. They're just completely gone. We'll look at that pack of tomatoes and be like, that went out of date yesterday.
Yeah.
I can't eat that. No, throw that away. It's gone. That's it. 75% of all food that's in our bin was edible when it went into our bin.
Oh, well, I can tell you one bin it hasn't got into, and that is Mr. David Hart over there. I've seen him consume some questionable looking things.
Good man.
He's committed to a cause.
At my own peril.
At his own peril. Yeah. He's willing to take the risk, but it's paid off so far.
Yeah. Yeah, so far so good. I trust my senses. Yeah. But I mean, I suppose this is just to speak on what we're saying here, is that we've become overly reliant, overly trusting in these companies and these corporations to feed us information about the kind of standards that we need to uphold.
Yeah.
And as you say, part of this whole complicated puzzle is that we have become so disconnected from the network, from food itself, is that we don't even trust ourselves anymore.
No.
That we've lost our instincts in some respects. We can't just look at food and think that's perfectly fine to use, or we don't even have the impetus to actually explore what we can do with the food and the scraps and the odd bits and everything that comes with it. I mean, I think you said that I was on your page because
it's the only source of research.
It is, yeah. But it's a wealth of information.
It's a treasure quality. Really. If you haven't gone and seen this, the bits and bobs he's put on both Instagram and TikTok, I really recommend it. Like you've done some amazing deep dives in there.
Really thank you. Yeah,
awesome
it's taken a while, but it keeps building. That's the beauty of it. You never stop learning. Mm-hmm. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I think you said, from what I saw on there, that the biggest offenders of food waste are things like bread, milk, and potatoes.
Yeah.
How can we perhaps limit the kind of waste that's happening with those particular items of food? I mean, what's happening there?
Well, I don't know the specificities of, where exactly, like potatoes, for example. I don't know why we waste so many potatoes. We love potatoes.
We love a potato.
We love a potato.
We love a potato.
I don't understand it. I don't understand if it's, things like cooking too many chips and then they go in the bin, or too much mashed potato, and that, like, it might just be the overcooking, or the storage of it. It could come down to a lot of things get wasted because we incorrectly store them. And a lot of people say, especially with potatoes, like store them in a cool, dark place or whatever. I store mine in the fridge. I never waste a potato.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if I'm incorrect in doing this, but I do it and I don't waste potatoes. So
Well, I'm going to trust someone that's come from the background that you have here.
I've never thought to put my potatoes in the fridge.
No, neither have I.
It takes up a bit of space, but
it preserves them. Yeah,
does absolutely fine. And things like bread as well. I mean, I know that fresh bread goes off really quickly. And we obviously have this massively over-processed bread that you can now get that's full of every single chemical available. But it's as you said, learning to utilize what we can do with it afterwards. Our general knowledge about food waste in the UK is so perversely small, and worse still is the knowledge made accessible to us to utilize it and prevent it from happening. So things like, with your bread, just turn it into croutons. Just chuck them in the oven, turn it into croutons instead of it going into the bin, and then chuck that in a salad. Your potatoes, I mean, just eat them. Why are you not just eating them? Just eat them. Just cook them and eat them. I don't care.
Just have a goddamn plate of potatoes.
Just have jacket potatoes day in, day out.
Force those potatoes down your throat.
Yeah. Bob or Bill or whatever your name is out there.
Think about the environment.
Eat more freaking potatoes.
God, you can put anything on a potato.
They just can go anywhere.
It's such a versatile ingredient.
Yeah. But as you say, it's with the lack of information.
Yeah.
Comes the recklessness, comes the overindulgence, because people aren't acknowledging what it is they're consuming, where it's come from, how it's been made. There's almost no acknowledgement of that whole process. Perhaps it's something that should be introduced into schools. I don't know.
Programs are starting to kind of reintroduce that, learning gardening and stuff like that. I was literally talking to someone yesterday who literally runs that program of teaching students how to grow a garden and how to, farm. And I think it's such an integral learning step that we no longer do. We're trying to push all these kids into learning maths and science. I love science. I can't say anything bad about science. But maths,
throw them down.
Maths
on the other.
How much maths have I used in my life that's just, I don't know. But they're just brainwashing people into being accountants and stuff like that. Make sure that they know how our food system works and how to actually cook food before you try and teach them trigonometry or something.
It's achieving that balance, right? Yeah. I mean, speaking from someone that's in that field, you do begin to question why certain things have been learned or why maybe certain things have taken priority over others. Yeah. And I do really, we eat 3 times a day.
Yeah.
As we grow up into adults, we don't have the pleasure of unless you've reached a certain point of having a private chef. You need to have an understanding of what you're eating, how that impacts you, but also how that impacts others.
Yeah.
And I think you spoke before with the Zero Waste restaurant about almost the chain of things that happen prior to them actually receiving it at the restaurant. And I think something that's also really important for us to talk about are the farmers.
Yeah.
Right at the very beginning, because from an outside perspective, with food being something that everybody needs all the way through their lives, that you would be making actually not a bad living from it. However, judging by the protests that have been happening pretty much all around the world, it sounds like it could also be a very dire situation for farmers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't know if you've watched Clarkson's Farm.
I have, yeah.
I've dabbled.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you said that. I didn't know which way you were going to go, but I loved it.
I absolutely loved it. I generally do not believe it set out to achieve what it achieved, but the awareness that is raised over farming and how difficult it is and how little money it makes I don't think any TV program has managed to achieve what they achieved. And yeah, I mean, the support we need for our farmers, was it 49% of all farmers think that they're probably going to have to close their farms within the next year? We need agriculture. We need that. That's our livelihood. As I think I said already, 70% of land in England is farm.
What is the root cause of this issue for farmers? Where is this chain getting broken?
Say supermarkets. They're underpaying the farms. I mean, you look at the prices of food in supermarkets, and I mean, I know the prices are going up, but buying a carrot for 30p, how much did it cost the farmer to grow that carrot? Probably like 25p. I mean, I don't know the statistics. I don't know the numbers.
Yeah.
And then you think, okay, so they're essentially getting 5p. There's probably not even profit because that's got to go back into growing it again next year. So they're the small margins that they're working on. And then a supermarket might turn around and be like, oh, we're going to do buy one, get one free on carrots. There goes that.
I can't imagine that's mandated by the farmers.
No, it's definitely not. Definitely not by the farmers. So yeah, they're completely controlled by the supermarkets.
Because you live next door. You live on a farm.
Yeah.
Have you been able to chat to the neighbouring farmers at all about the impact?
He's quite a grumpy guy. But I talk to his wife quite a lot.
Okay. That's fair.
I mean, she was saying that they sell, so it's mainly grain that they sell. They sell grain for the same price they do today as they did 30 years ago. What else?
Shocking.
What else are we selling?
How does that work?
What else are we selling that was the same as it was 30 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to graph that out, almost every other product
has gone up in
every
price.
other form of commerce has exponentially increased.
Yeah.
And yet that's just completely stagnated.
I mean, these prices go up and down all the time, but roughly the same. And it's absolutely...
So is it the role of government to impose new legislation to ensure that farmers get fair compensation?
I would say so, yeah. I don't know exactly the details of how that works. The whole food system is vast, and I'm still learning as you go, but...
aren't we all?
Yeah, aren't we all? But yeah, something has to change. And this is exactly why they're protesting.
So supermarkets have cast their spell of convenience and everybody goes to them because it's the most convenient thing to do. And I suppose they'd be dispelled to go to a farmer's market because of maybe the inconvenience of getting there and also to the inconvenience of it costing more. But actually, when I was doing a little bit of research, I found that there was almost very small, insignificant differences between the cost of food at the farmer's market and at the supermarkets. So just to give a very few comparisons and examples here. So vine tomatoes at the farmer's market were £1 for 250 grams, and at Sainsbury's they were £1.20
for the same amount.
For the same amount.
Yeah.
For the same amount.
Yeah.
At Sainsbury's, 80-gram bag of Rocket is £1.50, while a similar size bag of local organic mixed salad leaves and Rocket is £1.73. I mean, of course, there might be some slight fluctuations depending on the market that you go to, but really the cost is insignificant. And actually, to further this whole example, I'd say that what you get for slightly more cost, you get back. You reap so much more in terms of health,
and the quality.
And the quality. Improved health, more economical, investing in local communities and helping to restructure and rebalance the food system.
And the money distribution. Because I imagine that there is a hefty tag that's taken by the supermarkets.
Well, you're cutting out the middleman, aren't you?
Yeah, quite literally cutting out the middleman.
It's just direct. And I mean, there is a huge stigma around, farmers markets being expensive. But I always say, just if you go with an open mind and not really go thinking, I need to get this, and this from it. You're going to spend money if you go in there being like, I have to get this. If you go in with an open mind and look for deals. So the one I always go to in Bury, they have little bowls lined up on like the very corner of the stalls. They're like, everything in this bowl is £1.
Oh, okay.
Like you said with tomatoes, there's always tomatoes in there. Just a whole massive bowl of tomatoes, £1. Peppers, you sometimes see like avocados and all sorts of different things. And if you just go and be like, okay, I'm only going to buy stuff from that, you can walk away from the farmer's market only paying £5-10. In fact, I did a post on my Instagram, I don't know if you saw it, that is what I got for £10 at the market. And it's a huge amount of stuff, just because I went in with an open mind and was like, okay, I'm just going to buy whatever I know is in season. That's integral.
That's the bit,
that's the important part. And what is a good price.
Because you can get massive yield. It depends. You can have an amazing crop in a given year.
Yeah.
So I imagine, depending upon where you're at, or which country you're in, certain things are going to have grown particularly well, and then I imagine that crop is then going to be able to turn back into maybe more feasible costs to the people that are purchasing it. And also, the thing that you touched on there, this idea of it then being in season. This is something that I've really come to appreciate with my dad and the allotment that he has started up. Obviously, he has to grow in given seasons, and there is undoubtedly a noticeable difference in the taste and quality of what you get to eat when it comes from that particular source or that particular season.
Absolutely. I mean, you get like. There's a farm near me who's just started growing. So strawberries have just come into season. And
I love a strawberry.
Love a strawberry. But he was saying that the people who have eaten his strawberries have said they taste like how strawberries are supposed to taste, not what these supermarkets are batch feeding us. It tastes what... I don't know, it's just growing something organically and growing something very naturally and not bombarding it with chemicals to make it grow faster or pumping water into it or anything like that makes it taste better. It sounds, obvious. Sounds simple and obvious, but that's what you get from shopping at the farmer's market, is you get something that's been grown very naturally and is filled with so much more flavour and nutrients as well.
And with seasonal growth, I've invested in or used Veg Box before, a variety of different companies, and there's always an option on there ordinarily that you can buy a seasonal veg box, and you can buy one throughout the year. So a lot of the thinking around that is kind of taken away from you. But most importantly, and this is something you raised, it requires open-mindedness. It requires a different level of thinking.
Yeah.
You have to reshift your reality. You cannot continue to go on and say, I want blueberries in the winter and I want strawberries, come late. You have to, if you really want to commit to the ideal of food waste, I think all of us have to really reshift the way that we think and change our food choices. And it's hard. It's difficult. These things aren't easy, but ultimately you have to just remember what your highest value is, and it's...
But it seems so stupid that, us as almost 30-year-olds still, there's probably loads of people out there who are even older than us, still don't really understand what a seasonal product is. I've been in the industry the majority of my life, and still I have to double think what's in season, because we're not naturally taught this. And it also comes back to what we were saying before about having that confidence to cook it as well. Going to the market and looking at all that amazing vegetables, you don't necessarily know how to cook them all. And that comes back to education, I guess.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Each of these things that we discuss about, these are the things that need to change. Ultimately, a lot of these things are generational changes. There's things that we can do, which is what I want to touch on with you in a second. There's things that we can do to shape what's happening right now. But it all stems back to that same idea of what are we learning from when we're young? What experiences are we getting to really start acknowledging the importance of some of these topics? And I do think that there are elements of society where that shift is directly happening, but it's about just continuing to reinforce it from a young age and then encouraging in the public eye to make those positive changes, which is something that you're doing. And based around the work that you do and the things that you try to promote, one of those things obviously being the zero waste and the use of all parts of any food that you use. We had a discussion about this last night. Obviously, you can talk wider than just the one example I'm giving here, but the classic pepper.
Yeah.
the center of that pepper.
Yeah.
What can I do with it when it's done?
Well, I mean, you can eat it. There's nothing wrong with
holder.
eating. There's absolutely nothing wrong with eating it. But I mean, keep the seeds, plant the seeds, grow your own pepper plant. Why not? Give it a go. Or if you don't really want to, I don't know, eat it as it is, then blend it through a soup or something. Like, there's always something you can do with it, or just turn it into compost. It's kind of the get out of jail free card. But there is always something you can do with whatever waste product it is. I mean, going back to Silo, they have managed to reduce their food waste to 0.5%. And that 0.5% is compost.
Oh, wow.
That is
So
remarkable.
That is insane.
That is
insane.
what you can do if you really get... the head chef there says that food waste is just a lack of imagination.
I agree with that statement. And I look at myself in the mirror, and maybe I need to start taking down some of my mirrors in the house as well.
Yeah.
Dave can't do
You
that.
Dave
will
can't do that.
never look back.
I'll never
Because
look back.
there's no mirror to look back at.
But I am truly just inspired by what the idea of what you're trying to push forward. So let's maybe, I'll keep it sort of baseline to start with. But what are some of the basic habits or sort of changes that an everyday household could make in the kitchen to start making some real positive changes, and I would argue feasible changes for maybe someone that has had no experience of anything like that before?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing to do is just taking that extra time to go through your fridges and cupboards and just actually working out what you have to start with. I saw a figure the other day saying that during COVID, we wasted 1/3 less food waste. And I think that comes down to the fact that we just had time to really be kind of conscious of the food that we had in our house. And people had time to meal plan as well. I think that's a really important step to do, of going out and buying exactly what you need for the meals that you have, and then utilizing anything left over in another dish of some sort, or freezing it. There's nothing wrong with using your freezer. That's not frowned upon at all. But there's just
Even the composting, right?
even the composting. I mean, it is just the lack of general knowledge about utilizing it as much as possible. Yeah.
I'd love to know a bit about your preservation skills as well.
Yeah, I mean that's an extreme. Well, it's not so extreme, I guess, but preserving your food is another huge step. And I do workshops on this because it's something that we've just completely forgotten. I'm not reinventing the wheel with preserving food. 100 years ago, as I was saying before, we would take that food from the crops and from the fields, and then during winter when there is no crops, what do? You had to preserve your summer or autumn crops. So things like fermentation are a real important factor that I think people should just get back into learning. You kind of hear it as a bit of a food trend at the moment, people fermenting stuff, but it's not anything new. We've been fermenting food for 10,000 years. Beer, wine, bread, these are all fermented products. Even coffee has a fermented aspect to it. But yeah, just re-establishing it. And now, luckily, with the understanding of other cultures, we have things like sauerkraut and kimchi, and all sorts of different pickles. And it's just fascinating once you start to kind of scratch the surface of these sorts of styles of cooking, what you can uncover and how you can use it to lengthen the shelf life of your food. And then a step further from that is the health benefits of fermented food is just insane. I think that's quite a recent study, and that's why it's kind of boomed recently, is the amount of health benefits that they've discovered. I mean, I wrote some down. I mean, there's things like reducing the risk of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes, reducing muscle soreness after exercise, just a natural improvement in mood, gut health, obviously, enhanced immune system. And there was also one recently saying about GABA, which is a nutrients in your body which helps with anxiety and insomnia. Like, can you tick more boxes? No.
Yeah, I think even just those two simple steps you mentioned at the beginning there about assessing what you have and then making a plan going forward with what you have.
Yeah.
Would make, honestly, I think the biggest difference.
Oh,
because
I went off on quite a tangent there, but
I mean, and it's
perfect.
And it was a perfect tangent because
Yeah.
I find all that really interesting, and I think a lot of other people will. But just those really two simple modifications to anyone's life is just the planning process really, really would drastically reduce, and also make them really reconsider the way that they have been eating.
Yeah.
You know, it's always good for us to reassess our habits and address them and try and make meaningful changes going forward.
I always say that consciousness is key. As soon as we become, in fact, before consciousness, you have to have the intention to do this. You have to have the intention to reduce your food waste. And that's what I set out to do. I set out to raise the awareness so people have that intention, tell them the shocking facts, then they have the intention to try and reduce their food waste. And as soon as they have that intention, they'll be conscious of it. You'll suddenly realize the amount of food that you throw away just from thinking about it more. Because we don't often think about the food we throw away because of the convenience of the fact that, oh, look, it's on the shelf again tomorrow.
Yeah. I, again, linked to all the work that you do, I like that you set the awareness by using the online platforms. But as I was sort of touching on with the preservation, it's then that you action something. And you give the space and the opportunity for people to explore that in a little bit more detail by actually attending certain things that you do. So I know that you've obviously done preservation classes for beginners, or fermenting classes for beginners.
Yep. And
then something else that you do, which I suppose, based on what you said at the start of wanting to have your own restaurant, that zero waste restaurant is maybe the first step. Some of the zero waste suppers that you do, and I just absolutely adore that idea that you have a Michelin Star trained chef providing a carefully curated and created meal set. How has that been to be a part of and actually to run and give to other people?
I mean, that's where my passion for this really sparked, is just being able to curate something like that, looking at a menu and thinking, I'm going to link everything in this. I'm going to loop the whole entire menu so there's absolutely zero waste involved in it. So you're thinking about all the veg trimming, you're going to turn into a stock and then either use that stock or reduce that stock down into, if you add sugar to it, you can turn it into almost like a treacle. So you have this like vegetable treacle, and you can make it quite unique by using like only parsnip trim, and then you'll have like a parsnip treacle. And there's things like with milk, turning it into ricotta, which is a very simple process that people don't know about. With just milk and a little bit of acid, heating it up, it will split, strain it off, and you have the curd and the whey. The curd is your ricotta cheese, easiest form of cheese making you can do. But then you'll have the whey, which is often a waste product. But then you can use that in doing other things. So it's learning to adapt a menu where everything just links. And if you see a waste product, you then have to think, okay, how am I going to link that back in somewhere? And it's fun. It's really good fun to try and get your brain to think that way. After, the experience that I've had working in these top restaurants, just to be able to now apply it to something like this is really good fun.
Would you say that, imagination is the limiting factor?
Exactly.
And you've given yourself the opportunity to be able to harness that imagination and really explore it.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of go further. And, as Will mentioned, you have these online platforms and you're giving classes as well. But also am I right in saying what we were talking before the podcast, you've now partnered with a particular group?
Food Savvy, yeah.
Food Savvy.
So Food Savvy are a campaign based in, so it's Norfolk County Council and Suffolk Waste Department. It's a campaign that they've started, well, it's actually, I'm not sure how old it is now. but they're just trying to raise awareness of food waste. It's quite a simple campaign, but yet we still don't talk about it all the time. And so, I've partnered with them. I'm an ambassador with them. And I'm doing recipes for them. I'm doing videos for them. I'm just doing some top tips just to kind of raise awareness.
That's amazing, man. I think you've also shown there that there are people, as you've said before, there are people out there that want to continue to raise awareness. Because I know you would, was it last week that you were judging?
I was I don't quite know how I managed to get involved in it, but I was the Sustainability Heroes judge for the Velvet Food and Drinks Award. I write for Velvet Magazine, do a seasonal...
Great magazine.
Yeah, seasonal column that talks about what seasonal produce, what's in season. But I try and go a little bit off path with it and talk about stuff that isn't the stereotypical stuff that's in season. So in the summer edition, I'm talking about obviously, berries, obviously in season, but more importantly,
can't go wrong with a berry, man.
You can't, but more importantly, talking about foraging for berries and going out and picking your own. Also talk about going to the beach during the summer and harvesting seaweed and stuff like that, because seaweed is a fantastic product that's used all the time in Asian cuisine. But for us, even though we're an island surrounded by it, we don't use it. And there's other products and stuff that I talk about that just isn't your go-to. But it's raising awareness of what seasonal produce is.
Yeah. And you're giving a whole host of talks as well at different events.
Yeah. Depending on when this comes out. But yeah, this weekend, which obviously would have gone.
I'm telling you that, it's coming out.
It's it would have been and gone by the time this comes out. But yeah, I'm at the Taste of East Anglia Festival this weekend, doing a nice little food demo on making pasta out of stale bread, which is a recipe you can find on my Instagram. And then I'm doing a talk about just understanding our food system at the Wellness in the Wild festival.
Beautiful festival.
Yeah.
Love that a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I look down at my feet, which are currently laying bare, as I ended up getting some pretty savage blisters on them. Ooh. But I far enough away from my feet. I'm not, cuddling them with my feet or anything like that.
I was wondering where you were going with this, and it's just clicked. Yeah.
Yeah. But I have 3 glasses on the floor, and I don't really know why I was just told to get 3 glasses. I have no knowledge of this, but I hear on the grapevine that you may have brought some form of little treat.
A little juicy number.
These little juicy numbers.
Well, not only just to reinforce the continued knowledge and joy that you bring to my life, you sexy man.
Oh, I love it. Love it. Talking dirty to me.
Feed me a blueberry.
It works perfectly with. You guys love your non-alcoholic numbers.
We do. We do.
And I thought I'd contribute to that with my own little non-alcoholic number.
Oh, now. This was unexpected.
Now, this has been sat in my car all day, so I don't know if it might just explode on us.
Oh, that will give it extra stank.
We'll catch that on camera.
Okay, all right. Let's just soak everything.
Yeah. So this is tepache. So tepache is a Mexican sparkling drink made from pineapple trim. So all the skin, all the core, the tops of pineapples that's always wasted. Is in this. So it's water, it's all the pineapple trim, it's a little bit of sugar, and then you can spice it. So that has chili in it, ginger in it, some cinnamon, some lime.
Let's hold this puppy up to the camera right here. Ooh, yeah. We'll avoid the little label on the back of it. But my gosh, man, this looks like a thing of beauty right here. I'm very, very excited by it.
So it might explode.
To what degree?
I don't know. We'll find out, won't we? Let's go for it. Live on camera. Or it might just do absolutely nothing and it'll be a massive anticlimax. Ooh, yeah, there's a little
bit.
Oh,
there.
yeah, there we go. Oh, that's nice.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Beautiful.
good
I mean,
amount.
and this is going to be rich in vitamin C as well, people.
Yeah.
So this would be a good beverage for the winter.
But this is, obviously it's a fermented product. You leave it out for kind of 3-4 days, and it just kind of bubbles away and ferments, and then you strain it off. And I mean, that's still bubbling away.
I mean, it never ceases to just astonish me, and just completely bewilder, be mute, like all the different things you can do.
Well, it's when
It's having the knowledge, but also just the inventiveness and the imagination. It's just like, it's so cool.
That's what I mean by just scratching the surface with these things. You
This is
discover so many different things.
It's got a potent smell to this puppy.
Yeah, it's a potent one. It might not be for everyone. But
All right, I'm always willing to try.
Let's
Get my
down the
schnauzer.
hatch.
Okay, chin chin.
Chin chin.
Chin.
I already
Thanks.
took a sip.
That's
but-
okay, mate. That's okay.
Ooh.
Okay. Okay.
Different.
Different.
I'm getting
But
like
the-
sweet, sour,
Yeah.
almost bitter as well, which is
yeah,
weird.
bit-
like
the
a
bit-
contradictory flavour.
Because you get sort of the little kick from almost like the bubbles of what it feels like what's going on in there, and then you get that little pineapple hit. Then there's this real like kick at the end of it where but it leaves a nice little
It's like a
aftertaste. What's
sherbety.
that aftertaste? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, probably the ginger you're probably getting, because you have that kind of, also the heat from maybe the chili in there.
Also getting the boot of your car.
Yeah.
Getting
That could be
Is that from the 2014 region?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
nice
quite-
vintage. Nice vintage.
That's a nice vintage. That is actually very nice. I had no idea what to expect when I was told to get these 3 glasses, and what
I like to throw you right under it.
And of course, if any time you want to just make us, drinks, concoctions, and
have it as a running number on your podcast of just
tell us nothing. Just give us.
wacky-
Don't
just
even tell
stand-
us what it is.
No.
We'll drink it.
and one of these
and
days
then try
he's
and
just-
work out what it is.
Yeah, one of these days he's just gonna piss in one. And
Yep.
then be like,
Yeah.
there you go. Have
Guess
some-
what that is?
I'm getting.
I'm getting something.
It's a little bit tart.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I want to, before the cameras potentially die. I don't know if they will or not, but
oh yeah, we're close.
we're close. So before we go, I just want to say thank you for coming on.
Oh, you're very welcome.
It was an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
I think what you're doing right now is really meaningful, really intentional, and it's something that it's a pressing issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're doing wonderful work. Truly,
Thank
truly,
you.
truly.
Well, to
It's
connect
inspiring.
it back to being a podcast about happiness, it's trying to bring that optimism to quite a dark subject. And yeah, the more people talk about it, then the higher that optimism goes. So yeah.
Well, as we've said before, if you've not seen it before, go to Waste Not Rowen, both Instagram and TikTok, I believe.
Yep.
He's doing loads of talks all over the place.
Yep.
You're running your supper clubs. You're doing preservation skills. You are someone really trying to actualize a vision and a dream, and that's something that I really hold quite dear to my heart, and something that I'm really inspired by. And you'll have a loyal supporter in me for many years to come. And thank you so much for being here with us, man.
Thanks
really,
for inviting
really
me, guys.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.